This week on Alvarez TV, we are looking at the amazing 12 fret Dreadnought. We have three of them. We have one in Masterworks, one in Laureate, and one in Yairi. And we compare them, do an ABC, and we talk about the history a little bit and why these things sound different to a 14th fret. Please join us to talk about everything 12 fret Dreadnought today on Alvarez TV.
That was interesting.
Well,
you know what it was? There was something about that, and all I kept hearing all the way through was, because I was thinking some kind of like 60s thing, and then you'd said something about it being quite British, and I started thinking about that old British group, The Shadows, which probably our American friends will not know much about. Maybe.
I think they might have made it across the pond.
Yeah. And Hank Marvin was the guitarist.
Hank Marvin.
And
Red Strat.
Red Strat, yeah. And I heard a thing about Red Strats completely off the beaten track here, that lots of guitars had refinishes in the 60s because everybody in the UK wanted to be Hank Marvin.
So they got whatever colour Strat they had it painted.
They got it painted red, yeah.
Hi everybody.
Everybody, how you doing?
Welcome.
Yeah,
what are you doing today, mate?
Well, mate, here we are today with the Trinity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just came up with that.
Holy
Trinity. We have our MDR Masterworks 12 fret. We have the new out for this year LDR, which is the Laureate, and of course our beautiful Yairi DYMR70. So they've all got Sitka tops and they've all got rosewood backs and sides. They're all solid.
And they're all 12 fret slub shoulder dreadnoughts.
a slightly different shape. The Yairis are slightly different.
It is a different mold, the Yairi, yeah. These are slightly more square, the Alvarez, than the Yairi.
Yeah.
But we thought we'd do this because we've seen a bit of an uptick in sales of these for some reason.
Yeah.
And which is great to see because I think they're a beautiful looking guitar. This has launched really well. This has always been in the top sort of best sellers.
Yeah.
I wonder why, like why, the past sort of 2 or 3 years, is it just us? Is it generally people are sort of gravitating towards this type of thing? We've talked about a 12th fret many times. We did a show not so long ago about the triple O. We did
a show about 12 frets versus 14 frets, I think, at some point in the distant past.
Yeah. So it's it is quite different, but if we get into the history of these a bit, this is the original Dreadnought, not the 14th square shoulder Dreadnought. It was all about this to begin with, and this morphed into the 14th fret with the square shoulders.
So if we go way, way back to the early, well, it would be the sort of 1910s, wouldn't it? Sort of that sort of time.
Yeah.
Everything was a 12 fret.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we did a show. So we did a show on the history of a Dreadnought. We'll just touch on it here, but we can put that up there as well, which is really interesting because, obviously we're going back to Martin history, but Martin didn't make a Dreadnought, and they had an O, a double O, triple O, which was their grand concert, and I think they called it the auditorium model when they came out with triple O. This didn't exist, but they were making it for a company called Ditson, who were a department store. I think they had several stores, but working with the Ditson in New York. And Ditson had this model, which is well documented, and around, it started around 1915 or 16, like the triple O, 12 fret.
Yeah.
Which came out 15 years before this, or 14, something like that. Mm-hmm. Didn't sell great generally, and was kind of, this massive instrument. We keep saying that. This was like, when people saw this, they thought, in fact, it was advertised as a bass guitar, a bass Dreadnought at one stage.
Yeah.
So like, it just didn't sell, and people were still gravitating towards the O and the double O. Mm-hmm. And then I believe it stopped, and then there was a guy, his name was Harry Hunt,
right,
who worked at Ditson.
Yeah.
Came back to Martin in the 20s and said, we want to give it another go. And they called it the Hawaiian guitar, which somebody might explain that to us. There was slide going on in Hawaiian music and other stuff. Maybe they thought this might be a good instrument. There were still some people wanted louder guitars.
Were we using slide with it?
Yeah, I guess so. I'll be honest with you, I don't know. Uh-huh. But it was called the Hawaiian guitar. It wasn't in the Martin catalogue. It was only in the Ditson catalogue.
Well, I mean, it would have been an unusual thing. All those overtones, that big body, that kind of
bass.
Yeah, bass especially.
Just the size of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, go forward 5 years. Ditson, the department store that was asking Martin to make these for them, they went out of business.
This was the 30s, so this was after the
31. Ditson went out.
Depression.
Well, the depression comes in then.
Yeah.
Again, somebody might know better than us. In those few years, don't know what happened, but then all of a sudden, this appeared in the Martin brochure, I think in 34, 35. I think they called it the famous bass Dreadnought. The Dreadnought was a ship, a big ship, so this was a big guitar, so they called it the Dreadnought. And then in 37, I believe, everything changed.
So the first Dreadnought would have been a 12.
Yeah, this is it. This is the original Dreadnought.
Right, I get. Yeah, of course. I remember now. Yeah.
And again, somebody might know more than us why Martin went to a 14th fret. The only thing I can think of, and we've done a show on this before, if you look at the history of the OM, is the OM change. Was it Perry Betchell?
He was a banjo player, mm-hmm. and I think he wanted more access to the upper frets, and he asked them to do a extended. Yeah. But
that was on an OM. Actually, it was a double O.
Was it?
No, it wasn't. It was a triple O, and then they made it into a 14th fret. It became an OM because Perry Betchell was in an orchestra dance band.
Yeah.
And they called it the orchestra model. And that changed.
That's where it came from.
That's where it came from. And they changed in the 30s. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And they decided to drop the OM 34 maybe, mm-hmm. when they made it the 14th fret, the 0012 disappeared, and the 000 became the 14th fret. And that must have influenced Martin to make a Dreadnought 14. I'm guessing. Please let us know. And that was it. In 37 was a 14, and off we go, and the rest is history. And now we have, lucky to have both.
And it went completely out of fashion.
It did a bit, and then it came back.
J45.
J45 is a bit of a slope, yeah.
Yeah. Is that a 12 fret as well, J45?
No, 14.
Is this 14?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
You know, the Dreadnought's got this wonderful history, and now there's been an uptick in this model. And I think there has been a couple of times in guitar sort of sales where the 12 fret Dreadnought has become popular again. But when you hear people talking about, I love a 12 fret, I love a 12 fret Dreadnought, I love a 12 fret anything, they're usually talking about the position of the bridge and believing that gives something else.
Because the scale length's exactly the same, but the whole thing is kind of the X is shifted and the bridge is shifted. Yeah.
So when this became a 14th fret, if you can imagine, this became a lot more squared and it joined here instead of there, right? So this is more slope. It became more square. They changed that design, so that's what the current 14th fret Dreadnought, as we all know it. And this pulled forward. So in this respect, this bridge is further back, because the other one would be in a shorter body.
Yeah.
So the scale length's the same. The difference, what happens in construction, is when the X comes through like this, on a 12th fret, certainly on our 12 frets, on a 14th fret, the X underpins the bridge just on the corners. So the X just comes across the corners underneath of the top.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of construction and tightness going on. On our 14th frets, this bridge is more floating and the X misses it. On this Laureate bridge, it might just touch it because it's wide.
Because it's wider, yeah.
So that section of the soundboard, you've got the bridge plate, but that bridge plate and that bridge is not underpinned right at the corners by the X. So you've got more flexibility.
More movement, yeah.
There's more flexibility going on. And as we did in our show, we actually tested these against the 14th fret. We remember we got that like bloom, instant from a 12th fret.
Because I think the whole premise of the show was what had more sustain, wasn't it? We talked about because somebody had said, a 12th fret's got more sustain than a 14th fret. And we proved that it actually didn't.
Right.
Well, the 12th fret seemed to really blossom and really bloom straight away, but then it's...
Correct.
We had some decay.
Correct.
In the note.
That's right. Somebody said that. And I said, that's like a good memory. Yeah. So basically what happens is when you pluck the string and it transfers the energy, through the saddle to the bridge and excites the top. With this being more floating, it doesn't self-perpetuate the vibration, where if there's more construction, all the top, more integrity going on around here, it keeps that note going. And we proved that. We actually played one note. So a 14th fret with those X braces underpinning the bridge, the sustain is much longer. And the initial bloom of the note on a 12th fret seems much bigger or slightly louder, let's say.
Yeah.
And some people say, well, you don't need sustain, but you do need sustain if you're playing like what you just played.
Yeah, of course.
For example.
Of course.
Bends and holding notes and playing lead and all that sort of stuff. They feel a bit different as well, tension-wise, even though it's the same tension, and there's just something different.
Well, there is. I mean, when you're just playing something and the 12 frets here rather than just kind of being here, there's something about it feels...
But I think it's that looseness, it is slightly looser construction because of the place of the space, the placement of the bridge. But try both. But some people swear by a 12 fret, and having 3 in our lineups being really nice.
This is a marvel. This has worked out beautifully, hasn't it?
They're so different. These two sound very similar. I mean, okay, they've got a similar bridge on. They've got a direct couple bridge and a bi-level, similar shape, obviously, different kind of mechanics. And then we've got a one-piece sort of single level bridge. But this is a kind of a thicker sound, this guitar.
I know. There is a noticeable difference in them.
But the Yairi to me is much more open.
Yes.
And it feels quick on your hand, like the response. And there's a certain thickness in that, and it might just be that big, I mean, obviously the brace is slightly different. Might be just that big lump of ebony on there as well, is doing something, right?
But yeah, would make sense.
This is really sweet and open, super responsive, like a dynamic.
Yeah.
This is like really full and there's a lot of strength to that instrument. So to me, neither of them are better or worse. You know, we've got a
MDR.
It's a production line guitar.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Then we've got a hybrid, which is kind of a bench-made stroke production because we hand select all the parts and we finish them by hand, and has an extra bit of production line where it slows down, we do things. And then we have a completely handmade instrument in the Yairi. Slightly different bracing on this one. The X on the Yairi is slightly heavier, actually.
Is it?
Slightly. But the tone bars are similar. So there's some different things going on.
Okay.
But tell us your thoughts. Tell us what you think about 12th frets in general, but obviously...
Tell us how you're using them as well. We're always interested to get the conversation going, you know? It's like, I don't know, do you feel like it's more of a fingerstyle kind of guitar rather than a big strummer? I mean,
maybe.
You know?
Do you?
I don't know. I think it has a mellowness. It has a focus. It's like, it's different, isn't it? I mean, it's, you know.
Different instrument.
Yeah.
But do you feel less like you want to sort of strum away on it?
I don't feel like I want to bash them. I feel like I want to open tune them and noodle and pick on them. I don't know why that is. They just have that kind of mellowness to me.
I understand that. But let us know what you feel. If you own these, if you own both, like a 12 and a 14, what you get from either one. But certainly we'll put these to the test and see which one you gravitate to out of our offering.
Brilliant.
Thanks very much for listening, everybody.
Cheers, guys.
Next time.
See ya. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, click the like button and consider subscribing to our channel.
If you want to watch more videos like this one, click the video on the screen now.